there's a great piece of research that's come out from the offshore oil and gas industry about why procedures aren't followed, and this is not why don't people follow procedures, but why aren't procedures followed, right? And the reasons aren't going to be massively striking, and they're not meant to add up to 100, by the way. But 70 north of 70% people rely on their experience. They can't find 50% can't find the procedure itself. It's inaccessible, so like to try to navigate within the procedure is really, really difficult. When people do get the procedure, it's if they were to follow it to the letter, they wouldn't get the job done, or it's suboptimal. There's a safer, better way to do it, or it's just completely impractical, right? And so what we're doing with Caddi is really addressing the socio aspects of that.
Please help us welcome Michael Hartley to the face.
Warning, explicit content. This material may not be suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
Work all day. Nothing comes free. You gotta find a way. Gotta be willing to go put in some elbow grease. Cause you know nothing that you get in this life comes free. Gotta work.
What up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Mining Minds. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. Hanging out with my man, Dino Brunson.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're at.
That's right, depending on where you're at. We got an exciting podcast for you guys today. We're sitting down with Managing Director Michael Hartley of InterKnowlogy. It's an AI and performance visualization company based in North America. Is that correct, Michael?
Spot on, and you stuck the landing on the pronunciation.
He did, man. I was going to say A+ for the day.
He even spelt it out phonetically for me, so I appreciate that.
We need all the help we can get over here, Grover.
Absolutely. But we're excited to have you on, man. Sat down with you maybe a couple weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. Time seems to be running so fast right now. But I really got to dive into your business a little bit and wanted to get you coming back on with AI being a big thing in the world. Wanted to have you on and talk about that some more. But before we get there, we want to understand what little Michael was like. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born, raised? Things like that.
Okay. Yeah. How did I arrive here?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I was born in rural Nova Scotia. So if your listeners aren't up on their Canadian geography, that's the far east of the country. My dad was an RCMP officer. My mom was a teacher. And we kind of moved around a little bit and settled in Ontario. I then went back to Nova Scotia for university, and then started my career internationally in manufacturing. I should back that up. I said I came out of university not as a mining engineer, not as a mechanical engineer. I have a human factors engineering background.
So I've got a question for you, Michael.
Not
to interrupt, but what was it like to have a father as a CMP? I imagine that's a Canadian military police officer.
Canadian Mounted Police.
Canadian
Mounted. It's not a military designation. It's effectively our federal police force.
How was that growing up? I mean,
yeah, it was all right actually. Yeah, so my mom's dad was in the RCMP as well, and there's a sweet backstory about how my mom, when she was in grade school, would take the RCMP quarterly magazines after my grandfather had finished reading them and give them to my dad in class, who she knew wanted to be an RCMP officer when he was, when they were in grade 7. To be fair, my dad did grade 7 over again. My mom skipped grade 6. So there was a bit of an age gap, but yeah, even at that young age, that's where they met. And if it wasn't for the RCMP, I joke, I wouldn't be here.
Wow. So your mom and dad have essentially known each other or maybe dated since they were that young.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How cool.
Absolutely. Well, so I got to understand, how were you growing up? Because Dino mentioned, your family's basically federal government, right? Or federal agents. I'm not sure what the comparison is, I guess, but I mean, you probably couldn't get away with a lot as a kid, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, my mom was a school teacher and my
Okay.
father's a police officer. No, not too much. And of course, I couldn't rely on a delinquent younger sibling, which I did. I had a younger sibling. She wasn't delinquent. I was the delinquent one. So no, I think our upbringing was generally pretty positive. Yeah, unfortunately, my father passed away when we were teenagers, but even still, very strong family and a strong network of friends that helped us get through that, and who we're still friends with today. So maybe not didn't get away with too much. I perhaps made up for it later on in life.
Well, I would imagine that if your dad passed away at an early age, for you, at some level, you had to essentially become the man of the house. So you didn't have time to mess around.
Yeah. And I think at that point, it kind of it brought some sharper focus into what I was going to do. And I think, looking back, it gave me that perpetual sense of unease. I wouldn't be able to articulate it that way 30 odd years ago. But always having to look for, what's next, drive towards it, and then not be satisfied when you get there.
Yeah.
And think about the next thing. And, when you guys run your own business as well, that's effectively how you have to operate. Sometimes in order to feel that you're just standing still, let alone moving forward. And so that kind of desire to go into some uncharted territories brought me into this field of human factors and ergonomics. The two are used interchangeably, but it's effectively the optimization of human performance at work.
So is that
and there's a physical. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So is that what you went into college for? Is that what because you initially?
Well, I went in as a kinesiology student, so it's sports science.
Yeah.
But it was on my first day. A lecturer came in. His name was John McCabe. He became my mentor and fortunately my friend. And John McCabe said, "Okay, how many of you, there were maybe 50 or 60 of us, how many of you want to go to med school?" And basically all the smart students put their hands up, right? How many of you want to be, trainers or sports doctors? And all the athletically inclined people put their hands up. Who wants to be, good researchers? Maybe the more academically, gifted ones, but maybe the introverted wanted to do that, right? And he said, "Who didn't put their hand up?" And so I put my hand up. I looked around, and I was the only one who didn't put my hand up. And he said, "Okay, we'll make some time in my office later this week. It's first week of university." And he introduced me to this field of ergonomics, and I didn't look back.
Wow.
And I went into manufacturing with that skill set. I went to oil and gas with that skill set, broadened those skills, and then came into mining in a risk management position.
So could you give us a broad overview? I know how I've worked in ergonomics and safety and health, but maybe for our audience, what's a broad definition of ergonomics?
So again, the optimization of human performance at work, and that could be from a physical standpoint or from a cognitive standpoint. The physical one, most people are familiar with, repetitive strain injuries, limiting the opportunity for people to become injured at work. You see a lot of this in the manufacturing environments where you have a lot of repetitive movements. I was more focused on the cognitive side, which is how do you help people make better decisions through design of work? All right, not just the work environment, but of the work itself. So what does supervision look like? What do resources look like? What does information look like? And that's where you can start to get some really scalable, interesting, benefits of taking this human-centered design approach to work. I mean, we all, in any job, and your listeners in the mining space, every organization has got objectives and incentives. But if you aren't curating the decision-making environments that link those two, you're going to get a runaway between people who are just basically making decisions that are going to incentivize themselves and maybe not the business, or are in a position where they only have bad choices to make and you're not meeting your objectives.
Sure.
And so that decision-making environment is really what we try to curate at scale. And how do we do that? How do we help people make better decisions faster? Is by integrating different data sources, surfacing that information, and presenting it in a way that is timely, relevant, context rich, right? Where we want is we don't want to send people on a training course to understand this. We want 5 or 6 people to come in, look at the information that's presented, and generally walk away with the same conclusion. Because we realize that there's not just one person making a decision. We want to get, from a mindset of we want to get away of thinking about decision making only in a control room or in a boardroom. We have to meet decision makers, which the vast majority of mining professionals don't operate in one of those two environments. We have to meet decision makers where the decisions are being made at the point of decision making itself, and that's what we do with our command center and our industrial AI agent, our Caddi, which I'm sure we'll get onto here in a moment.
Sure. So I got to imagine that in this, you're really, and maybe I'm wrong here, but in my mind, I'm going, in order to start this, you have to probably start with your workflow processes. How do you get from A to Z in some of these scenarios to cognitively, effectively walk through each step to get to the end result? I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm visualizing step-by-step plays to start so that you guys know where to begin and where to end, and you guys come in the middle.
Well, maybe we could take maybe a project, a value case study that you have, and maybe walk through that for our audience on what that looks like.
Sure.
Maybe a project that you're doing in Nevada or in the United States or even in North America, that you approach a customer, from the time you approach a customer with a solution that you have for better decision-making abilities. What does that look like?
Yeah. And so I think we actually don't come in with a solution. I think this is the big difference between what we do as a technology company versus a software company. So software is great at capturing and organizing data, not great at helping people decisions. So as a technology, where we're coming in is, again, to be able to integrate all these different data sources and then surface that information and present it. So we actually start with the data. We start with the decisions. And so to go back to your workflow process from a to Z perspective, what are the critical decisions that are being made, right? And then what's the information that is going to help those decision makers, make repeatably good decisions day in, day out, again, with different people being in there as well. And yeah, I think that's where we really try to come in and and listen more so than talk about what our technology does. So let's kind of take a step back on this one. So our company's been around for about 25 years. So it's founded by ex-Microsoft employees, 2 ex-Microsoft employees, whose founding thesis was we can do more in the space of information visualization than what's currently on offer at Microsoft. Now, as a founding thesis goes, that's aged pretty well over a quarter century. And so when my business partners and I kind of took this over, we said, okay, we've got this command center platform, which was developed for the company's breakthrough client, our relationship with CNN, where we built out the CNN election wall. So everybody knows John King, who goes down and finds a small county in Pennsylvania that you've never heard of before, looks at all these data, then it seamlessly goes on to the next onto the next point of discussion, right? That's a decision-making environment, an experience that we're now replicating in large, complex, highly regulated, safety-critical industries, right? And people say, "Oh, well, everybody knows what a map looks like," and the visualization wasn't the only disruptor in that project. The big one was the production cost. So before InterKnowlogy, the election night coverage would be, kind of the slideshow. Yeah, you've got your script on the teleprompter, and then the individual standing in front of a green screen, effectively, right? Well, if there are any changes that needed to be made, and we know on election night there's loads of things that pop up, it was chaos behind the camera, right? He had to change the teleprompter. You had to drop in the exact new picture to reorder everything. And so what we did is we actually slashed the production cost of that by 90%, right? And let's take that into an industrial space, right? In order for us right now to pull all of this information together, it takes a subject matter expert or a team of, hours, sometimes days, to pull together that information for any given audience. And the term "slides for the board" should send shivers up anyone's spine who's worked in a mining company, because we know how difficult that is to pull all that information together. And it's not the right font, and are we sure about this data? Da 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 da. And then it gets to the board, and it might get consumed for 15 to 20 seconds, and they move on, right? So if we just think about like the amount of effort that's gone into the production versus consumption, it's tens of thousands of dollars an hour, right? And so from a cost of production standpoint, our command center, because we're knitting all this information together and automating those feeds, right? We're slashing the cost of production for that, but then we're allowing different people to come and see the same information and generally walk away with the same conclusion. My researcher colleagues from university would call that, the fancy term would be inter-rater reliability, right? So you've got different people coming in and looking at this information, they're rating it, and then they're walking away. And how reliable that is are they generally seeing the same thing? Intra-rater would be the same person being presented with the similar information on different days, and again drawing the same conclusions. And so that's really when we think about decision making, when we think about how to scale these decision making environments that are linking a company's objectives with individual incentives. But this is where we need to have scale. We need to have customization. We need to have flexibility to be able to do that.
Sponsoring this episode of the podcast, Liebherr Mining. When it comes to mining, you need equipment that works as hard as you do, day in and day out. That's why Mining Minds is proud to partner with our good friends, Liebherr Mining. For more than 50 years, Liebherr has been delivering a full line of mining solutions. Ultra-class haul trucks, powerful hydraulic excavators, dozers, and cutting-edge technology systems, all built to maximize productivity, lower operating costs, and keep your people safe. So whether it's moving massive volumes of material, tackling the toughest overburden, or integrating digital fleet management, Liebherr designs each machine with efficiency, durability, and sustainability in mind. That's Liebherr Mining. Click the links on the episode notes to find out more today. So in this process, and I'm going to bounce back and forth here because I am curious,
please,
how you went from college in ergonomics to helping be a part of this amazing company. There's got to be a transition there, and I'm sure that your younger years have helped support your current roles and your role in this company.
Yeah, so three big events throughout my career. One when I was at Shell, one when I was working on the largest oil and gas, the largest project in the world at the time. and then the tailings dams disasters that we've had here in the last 10 years.
Oh,
Those three events. So the first one was the Shell reserve scandal. And I'm not telling you anything that, this is not insider information. Look it up. Back in 2003, there was this huge scandal about how effectively Shell was not following its own guidelines to be able to classify reserves as possible, proven, and produced. And without getting into the nuances, again, we've got objectives and we've got incentives. People were being incentivized to upgrade the classification of these reserves because that's what the street was looking at in terms of valuing the business, right? Because the two big metrics from an exploration standpoint, and I don't know why we don't have this in mining, frankly, and I have asked. One, what's your reserve replacement ratio? So if you're producing, I'm just going to pick a number, easy figuring, 100,000 ounces of gold, are you finding more than 100,000 ounces of gold in that same year, right? So reserve replacement ratio.
Yeah.
Second is, if you were to stop finding anything new, how long would your company last for, right? And
two great questions, by the way.
They are great questions. If you've got a runway of, say, 8 to 10 years, well, as investors, I've got more confidence that they're gonna find more stuff in those 8 to 10 years versus 8 to 10 months. Right. I don't know why we never had that in the mining space. But
I think one of the reasons that we don't have that in the mining space, from what I understand, is if you're classifying or claiming reserves in a future state, there's potential tax implications that come with that, right? And we've seen that here in the West, that the exploration isn't always ahead of the operation, right? They've got 8 to 10 years of mine life that they talk about, and then the exploration isn't necessarily out in front of them defining that next ore body. They're just their investors are investing into that 8 to 10 years that they're classifying right now, and you know what I mean, to where it's a bit of a different game. I think more even flow. What you're talking about is definitely a lot better. I think it's going to give the market a better outlook on ounces produced. But what does that do to the pricing of gold as well, or minerals in general? Is that going to benefit the industry, or is that something to where it's going to stall out gold prices to where they go back to $1,500 an ounce instead of $3,000? If we know that there's a 50-year mine life of gold producing 5 million ounces a year, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that, and just thinking about what both of you just said, we're not finding the reserves that we were finding. So that metric that you talk about, Michael, it's a very interesting metric, because I do think it has the potential to increase the price of gold even more if you're not finding these big deposits that you usually do,
or the higher grade deposits for sure.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and the grades, the cost of production, that's all there. That's all baked into that as well.
But as an investor, that tells me, not that I don't have confidence in you as a company, but I also need to know that there's meat on the end of the bone as we edge towards those final years, or that year 9 and 10 as you get closer.
But I can imagine with you working at Shell, the oil and gas industry is a little bit different, to where, it's got to be a longer lead item. I would imagine that's more, it's more needed than gold. You know what I'm saying? But I am interested in finding out how a program like yours is going to be able to help affect the critical mineral space, like copper. Everything with the new green energy coming in, how this is going to be able to enhance that.
Yeah. And I think, the big difference, what I noticed between oil and gas and mining, you could chalk it up to one word: horizon. Right. Mining is quarterly driven, and its leaders our leaders are thinking about, maybe 3, 4, maybe 6, 8 quarters down the track, right? in oil and gas, and I had the privilege of being able to work in the Shell headquarters in Holland for a number of years. So whilst I wasn't rubbing shoulders with our senior executives, you hear some of the interactions, and these people are thinking not quarters; they're thinking decades down the road.
Yeah.
Right, and that's always been a hallmark of oil and gas versus mining, and actually one of the reasons I made the switch from oil and gas to mining, because I recognized how pivotal the mining industry is to the energy transition that we need to make, so that as we move from a production economy to a transition economy, mining is at the bottleneck of that, and I want to help kind of break that bottleneck open.
Well, I think it's going to be mineral specific too, correct?
It is,
because
yeah,
I mean, you look up north in Minnesota where they're mining iron ore, and that's for steel production. I mean, your minerals are valued at a different perspective depending on where we're at globally for different productions
and what's going on.
Gold. So I would imagine I'll just blanket it as it depending on mineral is going to really depend on severity or longevity of how groups like yours look at what's critical in your eyes.
Well, again, the opinion of Michael Hartley doesn't really matter when you consider what the market's looking for,
Sure.
Right? As much as I like to think I have, an outside sway in what the market dictates, but I don't. Nobody does. But no, to your point, I mean, the market's going to drive. But so what are markets looking for? They're looking for transparency. They're looking for consistency, and they're looking for a good management of change process, right? Whether that's regulations, whether that's a strategy from a company strategy, right? And so to be able to see these in the horizons that you need to be able to look at, this is where our visualization technology, I think, can play a prominent role. And just to have a kind of an overview, Nevada, I mean, it's a mining heartland of the United States. To be able to see the state and then look at all the plays that are there, the operations that are in play, the different minerals, the life expectancy, etc. All of those data are there, but to be able to knit that all together and be able to present it for your average Nevadan who's not in the mining industry, or somebody from the media, or from a regulator standpoint, to be able to get everyone to be able to see and understand this complex information in generally the same way. Again, that inter-rater reliability. We see that as being hugely important. We all know how difficult it is to get everybody on side for a new mining project. We hear that a lot, and I think a lot of it's down to, well, how are we presenting information to people? I mean, what assumptions are we making based on their baseline understanding of the process, these complex markets, and the effect that this operation is going to have, not affect, but the effect it's going to have socially, environmentally, economically. And so, when we step back, we think, we move away from the production economy where we're only focusing on, cost, schedule, throughput, output, right? Now we have to consider the inputs of the process, the inputs to that, the process that we're following. Again, not just the outputs, but the outcomes and the effect of that. And now we have so much more data and information that we need to be able to, again, synthesize and process for people to be able to help them make better decisions faster. And if it's not clear, you know yourself what happens. You regress to what you've known in the past, because that's where you have security, right? That's where you've got comfort, and Yeah, a great little story on that where uh, the grocery chain Trader Joe's in the United States, um, they were looking at how they sell more expensive olive oil, right? And they did this study where they were looking at the big grocery chains in the United States. You go to the olive oil section and you're overwhelmed by choice, right? And what Trader Joe's did is they only put 6 bottles on the shelf at one time. No, they rotated those. But what that allowed the consumer to do was to be able to ingest these kind of 6 brands, make some comparisons, say, oh, well, this might go well with X, or I need this for Y, versus being overwhelmed. And what do? You
Yeah.
retreat to what you know, which is brand and price point, right?
Yeah.
And so what they actually found is with fewer choices and better presentation, people were making higher value decisions of olive oil. Now, that's a commoditized product, but hey, we're in mining, we produce commodities. And so I think that is an example of how to how to leverage information presentation, how to design those decision-making environments that knit objectives and incentives. So you're helping people make better decisions faster, which is helping organizations better command performance.
Sponsoring this episode of the podcast, JSR Fleet Performance, supporting the people who keep mining moving. If you're a part of a training group or managing equipment operator development, you know it's not just about running gear, it's about running it right. JSR Fleet Performance works alongside training teams to extend the life of your fleet, reduce costly breakdowns, and make sure your operators understand how to get the most out of every machine. With customized training support, maintenance insights, and real-world in-field education, JSR helps surface operations boost reliability, safety, and productivity from the pit to the shop. So whether you're building the next generation of mining professionals, looking to audit what you currently have going on, or looking to help develop your workforce, brass in at Mining Minds LLC and bring JSR Fleet Performance into your corner.
So I got a question around the decision-making process. So in these systems, are the decisions already made? You just have a group of good decisions that you're pushing people to make? Maybe I'm losing a little bit of context
Are
there.
Are we prescribing decisions?
Correct.
Is that what you're looking? Yeah. So no, I think if we I'm gonna answer that question. I'm gonna say 2 things in advance of that, right? At the beginning of our chat, I talked about this perpetual sense of unease, right? And what that necessitates is an organization's capacity to probe its systems. So to constantly looking for where are the emerging gaps in our operating systems, safety systems, environmental, whatever they may be. Yeah, supply chain, etc. And so that the capacity to probe means I know what we need to measure. I know when we need to act. And then the second organizational capacity is this capacity to listen, right? And this is not me advocating for putting everybody on a see something, say something, listening training course. I don't think those are very valuable. But what I mean by listening is that organizations can systematically and on an industrial scale receive new information. They can consider that information, and then they can go and prioritize that. And so really we're helping build those capacities through the design of our command centers, the operations, which is the listening piece, and then that third capacity is that capacity to intervene, right? So we understand that why we're taking an action, what the expected outcome of that action is, and then we can build in what we call assurance metrics that say, okay, well, we're assessing the data quality on the decisions that of the information that you're making this decision on. Is it low? Is it high? And there's ways to measure that. The second is that action index. So are we getting after the biggest gaps, or are we just doing a whole bunch of busy work that we've always done before?
Yeah.
We haven't been reprimanded before. We're constantly being rewarded for. And then the last one is the effectiveness index. So did that intervention have the desired effect? Were we able to sustain that delta over time? And were there any other kind of knock-on effects? So to answer that question, we're not prescribing decisions that ought to be made. What we're helping organizations do better and at scale is probe and listen, and then give some reinforcement around how those decisions affect the organization's, again, their objectives, and then you work on those incentives. But it's that decision-making environment that's going to knit those two together.
Well, but that explanation definitely helped me out. That made me see the bigger picture. So I guess what I'm looking at now is it's not a prescribed decision. What you're doing is you're taking the full data set and you're taking out the link that says we do this because we've always done it. Now you're pulling all the data together to say, are we really doing this because there's benefit to it, or just because we've always done it? It might be a different solution that's going to provide the better output, but it's all data driven.
That's right. And it's the difference between surfacing insights that you didn't know that you needed.
Correct.
Versus those that you know that you want.
Right? Yeah.
And
so essentially you're looking outside the box.
Are two different things.
You're looking outside the box with all of the data, and it's not a guessing game.
That's correct. Yeah. And I think this is where it's probably the segue into the AI conversation, where we can support that again at scale by laying over our industrial AI agent, what we call our Caddi, over our command center. And Derek, I think we walked through a couple of examples of what that looks like, how we're using that in the mining space, in the offshore drilling space as well. But yeah, that's kind of the second product that we have on offer in the mining and energy space within InterKnowlogy, which is our industrial AI agent, or Caddi.
And I want to walk in that, but I'm sorry, the human element of this still gets me intrigued.
Please.
Because we did talk about Shell a little bit, and then we went down a couple rabbit holes, which is generally what we do. But you said there was two other big moments in your career that's kind of have led you to where you're at. And I'm just trying to paint the picture for the audience, because I do think this all probably ties together all these scenarios.
Yeah, and again, the reminder that the Shell Reserve scandal was my first kind of time where I saw a lot of really senior expert people all be making bad decisions at the same time. And that was a structural failing, right? Because of the way that we were incentivizing. And this is where, as a human factors engineer, design dictates performance, behaviors and performance, right? And I'm of the opinion that bad decisions sometimes are the result of, because there are only bad decisions to make, and not somebody circumventing a good decision to go and make a bad decision maliciously. Right. So the reserve scandal was the first one. The second one was when I was offshore in the North Caspian Sea. I was working for the Kashagan project, which was at the time the largest project in the world. So to kind of give you a sense, in the offshore component, where I was looking after the safety, health and environmental risks. We had 6,000 people working offshore every day. So you think a decent sized mine site could be 600 people. So an order of magnitude larger than that. And we're 75 kilometers off the northern coast of the Caspian Sea. And 40 different nationalities, 20 different languages. And
Wow.
so I kind of always have a bit of a wry smile when I hear, oh, we have a communication challenge at one site operation. And in the onshore component of the project, they had 30,000 plus people working there as well. And so during my time, we were very fortunate, not to lose anyone. No one got seriously injured. We didn't have a major health outbreak, and nothing egregious went to North Caspian Sea. But it was at that time that Deepwater Horizon exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm sure you know the story, but when I was offshore, the installation manager comes to me and says, "Hey, I know we're at different stages of operation here, but could something like this eventually happen to us?" And with the data that I had in front of me, that was immediately available, right? I couldn't definitively say no, right? And so that's when I knew that the way we were managing or sort of measuring and communicating performance information needed to change. And I'm sure most of your listeners will know the irony of that story on Deepwater Horizon was the day that exploded was the day that 4 executives flew offshore with the sole purpose to give the management and crew of Deepwater Horizon a safety award because they had gone 7 years LTI free. And there's a paper by Andrew Hopkins, Working Paper 78. It's very consumable. Who talks about that in more detail. And then, so that was the second, and then the third was the tailings dams fatalities, disasters that resulted in a high number of fatalities in Brazil. And the fact that those very similar, in the same jurisdiction, and we had one in Canada in between that, on Poly as well. That's when I knew that, okay, all these suspicions that I had harbored over the last 15 years of my career, we need to try and solve that by looking at the decision-making environments that people operate in. And that's when I decided to go on my own, start my own enterprise risk management technology company, which then merged with my current company, InterKnowlogy here, getting on 3 years ago.
Well, that's why I wanted you to walk through that a little bit, because throughout your career, you've been able to look at people, their decisions, the behaviors during and after, and before those decisions, but really, and then measure the risk associated with that. Because you mentioned risk a couple times, and the one thing I wanted to know as I kind of walk through this, so bear with me. There's a I want to say an article out there somewhere called the 7 Delusions of Unsafe Behaviors. I can't remember it. I'll find it and link it to this, but it talks exactly about what you're talking about. It talks about the people that highlight the 000s, the people that have the best safety awards generally have the highest risk of something going wrong because either they've slid things under the rug or the behaviors on the back end don't match up with really what's being, and that's not to say everybody, right? I don't want to blanket everybody, but it is a very interesting article to read because a lot of these companies, Chernobyl, they have a lot of behaviors tied into decisions, tied into risk that it's all kind of looks good on the surface, but when you really start diving into it, it's not. So I think that ties in with where you're going or where this is brought into the career, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and I think that's why these assurance metrics are actually really, really important. We're all familiar with lagging indicators, and leading indicators. Companies will have different leading indicators, but what does a leading indicator? What's its purpose?
Are you
its
asking?
Purpose is to help people make decisions.
Yeah.
And if I look at the vast majority of leading indicators, and we'll pick on HSC here at the moment, but like number of inspections, number of management walkarounds, or whatever that may be, right? These are then instantly subject to Goodhart's law, right? So if you're familiar with Goodhart's law states that when a metric becomes a target, it ceases to be a useful metric.
Correct.
Right. And, if we're then again think about objectives and incentives, if we're rewarding on those leading indicators, well, then we're pencil whipping our way through to quote unquote good performance. But if my assurance metrics say that, hey, the information that people are looking at is not great, our action index is really low because we're creaming the easy work that we always do, but doesn't have a great benefit to the organization. And our effectiveness index is really low, meaning that, hey, and I've done it myself, Hartley, your name's associated with corrective action and it's due tomorrow, fix it. Well, I do something,
Yeah.
right? And my name goes from red to green. I never hear from that person.
Correct.
Right. Well, that's not giving me a lot of comfort as a leader that my people are looking at the right things, they're making the right decisions, and the interventions that they may take, however there may be fewer of them, are of higher value and more sustained. Those are the kinds of operations that I want to see, and whether that is from an operations standpoint, whether it's from thinking about from procurement, take your functional maintenance, perfect example, right? Those assurance metrics are applicable across a whole host of functions.
I agree. The other thing I want to note is, at least what I will say in my experience in the mining industry, we focus a lot on lagging indicators. And then if an organization does try to, the TRIFR is a good example. And I just had this conversation the other day. While it's a good indicator, it is still an indicator of past performance. But if you start to look at observations or interactions, what deteriorates that, to your point, in my opinion, is when you look at it as an opportunity versus an obligation. If I'm somebody out there excited to go engage and help, then it's different than if it's something I have to do. Because then if it's something I have to do, in my opinion, I'm less likely to go do a good job in this. So again, to me, it starts relating back to behaviors. And so then how good are your leading indicators? And then if you're going to incentivize them in green, reds, yellows, etc., you don't want to pick on something because you don't want to have to do additional work on top of something. All I'm saying is there's a couple really fascinating topics in there, and where I think, for me, knowing what you guys do now is you get to help support that. You get to take out some of those obligations or some of that stuff that I don't know, maybe feels like more of an obligation, in my opinion, with your guys' Caddi. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if we think about we start with the decisions, not with the data, right? Because we're focused on we start with the data, then because we can collect it, therefore it must be important, and that's a huge fallacy in performance management. And when we think about the only time that we're collecting performance information is on the back of an unwanted event, right? And we think of the bell curve, and so our unwanted events are in that left hand sort of tail of the bell curve. Well, there's 99% of operational performance information that is going untested, right? That's going unmeasured, frankly. And what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to measure failure from successful work as much as we then measure failure from failed work as well. And I think that measuring failure from successful work, first of all, there's orders of magnitude more of it, so it's going to be richer and it's going to give you more information. But you're also taking out a lot of the emotion and the poor and the biases, et cetera, associated with the data capture of it. So I'm much more interested in again measuring failure from successful work than I am measuring failure from failed work.
Sure. What are we doing good? Sponsoring this episode of the podcast are good business parts at Heavy Metal Equipment and Rentals. When the ground is tough and the clock is ticking, you need more than just equipment. You need a partner who lives and breathes heavy-duty performance. That's Heavy Metal Equipment and Rentals. From dozers and haul trucks to loaders and excavators, HME has the equipment to keep your operation charging forward. But it's not just about the iron, it's about the commitment to safety, reliability, and to getting the right machine at the right time. That's why they offer both short-term rentals for immediate jobs and long-term rentals to preserve capital and manage your budget. And if renting isn't the answer, they've got you covered with equipment sales, financing, fleet appraisals, and big job repair contracts. So when your project demands a partner, precision, and relentless support, contact the team at Heavy Metal Equipment and Rentals. Click the links on the episode notes and find out more.
So how do you get customers in the mining industry? I mean, as far as sitting down with the mine site and walking them through something like this, because this would be a huge change management undertaking, right? I mean, for somebody to believe in the program and because everybody thinks they've got the perfect mine site or they've got the perfect processes, I would imagine this is I don't want to say a tough sell, but it would be hard to digest from the site level, I would imagine.
Well, again, one of the things that we do is we come in and we listen. And so because we're able to customize and not talk about all the configurations that you can make on software, we're doing less of the talking, frankly. So we're doing more of the listening. And then how we kind of go about integrating ourselves into an organization is we're not saying, oh, you need to replace systems A, B, C with us, right? So we're very, again, we're technology, so we're complementary to all the systems that are existing.
Gotcha.
At a site now. So we're not a threat, for lack of a better term, to systems ABC. So that makes it fairly straightforward because we've productized this. We're coming effectively with 70% of the solution, and what we do in the 6 weeks or so that we're engaging with our clients is to start with the decisions, right, and to design the interface, and then we spend the rest of the time kind of doing the digital plumbing, and we start small, and then we let it sell itself internally. So it's not a big bang. We can very much take an incremental approach to this, and that's for both the command center and our industrial AI agent, our Caddi as well. So
can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, it's not as daunting.
Okay, no, that's a good explanation. Really, I guess I'll somewhat play a little bit of devil's advocate because knowing that now it's more of an enhancement tool and complementary tool to the systems that they have to make better decisions.
Right.
Yeah, we've got. Yeah, exactly.
And so I do want you, if you don't mind, maybe walk us through a little bit. I don't know if you are able to throw anything up on the screen if you want to do that. But I know that the exercise that you kind of did with me about the Caddi was super interesting. And I thought it was just a very unique, approach to what we do. And I could immediately see the value, especially when I was young in my career, to utilize a tool like this.
Well, I think the Caddi is, or even any AI system, we've sat down with an AI company from a process side of things or a mechanical side of things. And I think the generalized outlook on AI is trust behind the AI system, right?
Sure.
To where I definitely would like to, even if it's not today, another time, but to take a look at the Caddi system and how you use AI to benefit what you guys are doing and enhance these programs, because that's the way of the future. And that's the way everybody wants to go, or that's the way everybody needs to go. I think it's more around the trusting the systems and doing it incrementally, like you said, to where it's making jobs easier. It's making the decision-making process better, faster, more efficient for the sites that you're working on. And it's the way of the future. It's just the human element of trusting a system like that is huge.
I think that's fair. And so let's kind of step back and think with the name are, Caddi, and a lot of your listeners will be golfers, or at the very least, like myself, own golf clubs.
I'm with you.
And this is the relationship that we see AI should be having with people in our industries. This is not a co-pilot that sits over there and does its own thing. This is not a butler that just brings you anything that you ask for. But a caddy is a student of that industry, of the organization, pardon me, who can present that information that you need, based on that decision, but then hands you the club and says, go make the shot. Right. So from an operational excellence standpoint, there's basically three questions that anyone needs to know, right? What needs to happen to do the job right? The job's done right, it's done safely, it's done reliably, it's done sustainably. What's happened in the past that I can learn from, and what's happening right now that I need to know about, right? And we can get into a fourth one, like what will happen down the track, but that's down the track. So answering those three basic questions, what needs to happen, what's happened, what's happening. Our caddy's been fantastic at being able to present those answers in a very consumable way at the point where decisions are being made, where the work is being done, right? One of the challenges that we all know, but we haven't really come up with a better way to do it is, the morning lineouts where we say, hey, we're doing tasks X, Y, Z, let's think about all these things. And then we say, have a safe day, think about your family and friends, all the reasons why you're, why you're here working. And then we send them out, and then we chastise them for forgetting something that was told to them 8 hours ago. Right. Well, as humans, we don't have that short term or that memory capacity to be able to remember all of those things. Think about the simple thing of running out the door to go to a grocery store, right? You're going to pick up 5 or 6 things, and your wife says, "Oh, don't forget, items 7 and 8." Well, as soon as you crest that threshold, for me, it's like 4. I need to get pen and paper, right? Yeah. And so for people to be able to then answer those questions, what needs to happen, what's happened, what's happening, right? We can't rely on their memory. One, we can't rely on a team of subject matter experts to be able to present that information at the point where decisions are being made in a consumable way. We just don't have those resources. And so, again, Caddi's been, it's been very well received in the offshore drilling environment. We're on 40 rigs now around the world, and Caddi has become a bit of a verb, right? It's to look for information within one's own organization. I'm not sure that's in the Oxford Dictionary yet, but maybe we'll get there. And the important thing, the trust, that you brought up, is that Caddi only exists on, one organization's, let's call it, golf course, right? Because every organization, if we let me expand the golfing analogy perhaps a little bit too far, has its own unique digital topography if each one is its own golf course, right? And so what we don't want is Caddi to stray from one, to another, or to the ether, where it's then just considering information from uncontrolled sources, right? Because AI is only as good as the QA guardrails that run along beside it, right? Caddi is great at doing quality control. Your subject matter experts are great at doing quality assurance, right? So think of people in the front, people in the end, and then Caddi running up the middle. And when you make that distinction between QA and QC, and I was guilty of this back early in my career, I considered those things to be the same thing, but they're actually very different skill sets. And if you've got that subject matter experts and being those QA guardrails, you've got a lot more assurance that the information that Caddi is going to yield is going to be highly reliable. and then we can present it in a timely, context-rich manner as well. And what we didn't expect were two things. One, Caddi was being used as a planning tool, right? So, we've got this shutdown coming up. Well, let's see if we've got all the materials in place to be able to manage that work that's going to happen in 2 weeks, as opposed to on the day, what's the procedure again? Oh, do we have this stuff? Oh no. Okay, now we've got to go and pay top dollar to get this on, or else we're holding back the work. So that was one really good planning tool. The second was a little more has more kind of a human-centered aspect to it, where we've all been early in our careers where we don't want to ask the dumb questions, and so people are able to reserve their social capital a lot more on a site by coming to a more experienced colleague and saying, "Hey, I've caddied this information on X. How do I use this information?" Right? As opposed to, where do I go to find? Oh, Jesus, and then the eyes roll back. I'll just do it myself, right? And now you've got somebody who's trying to learn, who's not in a great position to learn based on that interaction. And there's a great piece of research that's come out from the offshore oil and gas industry about why procedures aren't followed. And this is not why don't people follow procedures, but why aren't procedures followed, right? And the reasons aren't going to be massively striking, and they're not meant to add up to 100, by the way. But north of 70% people rely on their experience. They can't find 50% can't find the procedure itself. It's inaccessible, so like to try to navigate within the procedure is really, really difficult. When people do get the procedure, it's if they were to follow it to the letter, they wouldn't get the job done. Or it's suboptimal. There's a safer, better way to do it, or it's just completely impractical, right? And so, what we're doing with Caddi is really addressing the socio aspects of that, right? People relying on their experience too easily. Why? Because it's really difficult to go and find something, and then when I get it, it's not that useful. Right. And then there's the technical aspects around optimization of the system, the procedure itself. And so we're doing that through our generative capabilities, where we're scaling the ability to effectively, Caddi's a technical author. So you feed it in technical content, and then it's going to ingest that and present it back based on some content requirements and structural requirements, again, for that organization. But you've got QA at the beginning of that process and also QA at the end. And your subject matter experts aren't spending countless hours, drafting and redrafting policies, standards, procedures, work instructions, tools, etc.
So I've got a question for you. With that being said, I know when we're talking site specific or industry specific, let's go back to the golf course analogy, to where everybody's got their own digital topography, right? But I can imagine on a grander scale, you can take all the golf courses with their own digital topography and have a master caddy that can look at an industry and potentially maybe even rewrite the MSHA standards and standardize the mining industry as a whole. I mean, to me, it seems like there's that potential.
There is that potential for sure. And I think, when we think about, objectives is about meeting requirements, right? And before you meet them, you've got to be able to define what they are, right? Deliver against them and demonstrate that. And we think about, a given project in a given jurisdiction, right? That project organization is going to have the federal and the local regulations to follow. They're going to have the operating system of the management system of the operator that they've got to follow. Perhaps one for the site, their own, any subcontractors, throwing an EPCM in there. And all of a sudden there's kind of 5 or 6 overlords dictating what this organization has to be able to do, again, to meet its objectives, right? How are you incentivizing people? What's that decision-making environment that you're trying to create, right? And so what we're able to do on our requirements bridging is be able to determine what a requirement is, and then provide some contextual information, and then interrogate a suite of documents to be able to determine whether that requirement is being met, whether there's a gap, or whether it's missing altogether. And so what that does from an organizational standpoint is say, okay, now I know where I need to go and fill some gaps here. So yeah, to your point, Dino, around updating a whole suite of policy standards, procedures, etc., you're effectively laying out what those requirements ought to look like, and those that is something that now we can do at scale, but we can't just do that willy-nilly. We need to be able to understand how those requirements be presented, the content requirements, the structural requirements for that are actually very, very important. And so again, having the QA on either side of Caddi is going to be very valuable. But you much rather have your subject matter experts spending their time on QA than, frankly, wasting their time on QC.
So I want to maybe simplify this for myself, because I think this is how I related it. But it is essentially an internal, let's say, mining company A. It's an internal, better version of a Chat GPT. Whereas I'm a new guy, I can go and ask questions, get planning advice, but it's going to pull standards, processes, procedures, data from the internal side of the company. But effectively, that's going to do a couple things, if I'm correct so far. It's going to allow me to make better decisions as I say, a young professional or an inexperienced professional. And then it's going to turn some of those leading indicators into more effective leading indicators. And those are a couple things that I imagine it does. You mentioned the planning. My brain goes to, if you have a shovel down, how could this help? So there's so many scenarios that this could involve with, but I'm just thinking from a simple-minded guy like myself, that's really what it is. Or am I on or correct in that?
Yeah, the only correction I would make slightly is around the assurance indicators. That would be something part of the command center that we could that we could build in. But yeah, so a much better kind of Chat GPT, because you've set up the guardrails around it, right?
Are you able to? I was just going to say, are you able to drive? Have you seen results where it drives culture in different ways because of the Caddi?
Yeah, so I think two things. One is that those questions that are being asked, within teams. So from where you've got that experience delta, which I've already touched on, but then from a subject matter expertise standpoint, we've got one subject matter expert engaging with another subject matter expert. They're able to then better locate, summarize, and then gap where things are missing.
Sure.
And so mining, we've always suffered from poor planning, right? And so this is really helping people to better plan that work. What does planning work mean? It means defining what the requirements are, delivering against them, and demonstrating that they've done so.
So my question around that, Michael, is from a planning perspective, and I'm trying to paint the picture in my mind, but you have these OEMs will take an open pit application, and the manufacturers suggested a change out on different components and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Really, those are all laid out as the equipment's being sold. But you come into a situation where maybe the mining company says, hey, we're going to push these things out. Your system's able to you could take the OEM recommended change out dates and put it all into the system and basically give a risk factor for what happens if if the site decides not to change them out and they're trying to extend times for tonnage and things like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, and that would be something we would be able to customize to accommodate that, right? You think, a mine site like Robinson in Nevada would have maybe 50 to 60 pieces of mobile mining equipment, right? Obviously, your larger sites are going to have more. Your smaller sites are going to have fewer than that. But just to then get the horizon, again, I'll go back to that word horizon, and to be able to illustrate that. So this is not it's not a guessing game, or B, you're not just listening to the loudest person in the room.
Correct.
And this is where those decisions become much more data driven. And I was just talking today with a person on my team about, we've all seen the business intelligence model, right? Where you go from data to information to knowledge to intelligence to wisdom, whatever it is, right? But there are steps that you've got to be able to take in between each of those to be able to go from one to the next, right? So you have to be able to account for the right information, right? Are we measuring the right things? Yeah. And then to go from data to information, you got to be able to analyze. Well, what are you analyzing against? What are those performance requirements, right? And then to go from information to knowledge, you've got to act on that, right? So again, those decision-making environments. And then you've got to be able to assess whether that knowledge is actually giving you some kind of intelligence. And then if that's in the affirmative, then you can then go and apply that elsewhere within the organization. But no company is going to kind of easily skate along that model on its own. You have to be able to hit those things and do the work up front. But again, kind of like the CNN election wall, where we slash the cost of production on that, you don't have to keep doing that every single time. You can set that up where it's fed in, it's always updating, it's always refreshing. And so therefore you've got a lot more confidence that the information that you're working on is of high quality, right? You can get after the biggest gaps because you've got that ability to probe and listen. And then you can see the effect and the horizon of these interventions that you take.
Yeah. So the lens, I guess maybe I should have explained that. The lens I'm looking at it from today is from, an equipment standpoint. And essentially, I mean, I guess my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. Mine because too. Being able to utilize a system like yours inside of your CAT, Komatsu's, Hitachi's, organizations to really dial in their equipment from a data-driven set of whether it's cylinders or whatever the major components are for these mine sites, there's opportunity to capture a lot of savings. It's really going to be pushing these people to build even more quality pieces to where you're going to standardize the not standardize. You're lifting the competition. Yeah, the performance of not only the machines but also the data and the people in the decision making process at site, to where you're optimizing all of it.
I think that's the kicker for me is optimizing. And the one side I guess I wanted to ask about is, so I go from being an individual contributor and utilizing Caddi to now I'm in a team and I want to see how my team's doing. Can I go on the back end of this? And if I have 10 people out there doing observations or doing work, can I gather what their needs are from this system? Meaning, if they all need to learn about, I'm going to use fall protection. That's the one thing they're caddying. Yeah. And am I able to pull that information? Because as a leader go, man, I need to get these guys some more information on fall protection because this is what everybody's caddying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that it would be a step 2 after deployment, but we could come up with a visualization, say, okay, I've got all these multiple sites, and even within the sites, this is what people are asking about. And think about how powerful that would be as a leader to be able to go into a mill and say, okay, what have been people caddying for the last week or so? Because this is what's important.
Sure.
And instead of going with the stock, housekeeping and PPE speech, everybody kind of rolls their eyes and suffers on. if a leader were to come and say, hey, I understand that A, B, and C have been issues in this last week. Why is that?
Yep.
That is a much better question that leaders can be asking.
I agree.
And therefore, as an employee, right, think, oh, wow, this guy's actually, you're wanting to listen to what we've got to say. So he or she's looking for information on how to make this work environment a better one.
Sure.
I'm willing to give this person some more time, right?
Yeah. No, I like
So
that
yes,
fact.
that's something that we can set up.
I like again where Dino's at. My head's bouncing in 7 different directions, so we could probably talk for another 3 hours. But I guess the other side I want to know is, how is the current companies that you're working with? How have people reacted to this? And what's your guys' approach in the mining industry? Because there are some miners are late adapters. Mining companies are often late adapters, or adopters, I should say. So I guess what's your guys, how's that looking for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, mining has always suffered as being an industry that's in a race to finish second.
Right.
It's a common phrase up here in Canada. And we look at it this way. We are looking for that 10% who want to lead, right? Because we know that there's going to be 80% that want to follow, right?
Sure.
And the psychology of buying is you don't buy something necessarily because it's great. You buy something because somebody else has it.
True
right?
story.
And when the mine site down the road has got something that is getting better reviews from inspectors, it's starting to attract your good people, you're going to get that too, right? And hey, we're business, we can't wait forever, right?
Sure.
But that's the approach that we're taking, is that we want to be organizations caddies,
And
right?
it's
Because we know that there are multiple things that we can do and are doing beyond the kind of the base foundation of generate, automate, visualize, analyze. We're scratching the surface, and we're delighted to be scratching the surface with the partners that we've got. But we also know that there are a whole slew of organizations out there that don't realize the height of the hurdle to get over is nowhere near the height that they think it is to get started.
Yeah, they just don't know what they don't know. And I am very thankful that we had this podcast today, just because, it opened my eyes to, another level of AI, another, Caddi, to where it's helping revolutionize the industry, and really to get the message out and just have a discussion around the benefits or the options that we have in the industry to become better, and better based on data. And it's not a guessing game. We've got systems that are here to enhance what we do.
Well, it's useful data. Excuse me. And again, I can think of contractors, OEMs, supply chain. There's so many different rabbit holes that we could go down, production planning. But the one thing, because we've talked about this in recent podcasts, is I think one of the biggest things I see coming out of this is it's really going to help your workforce development. You're going to learn from this tool. And then when you feel like you're learning and you feel like you're advancing, that helps with retention. That helps with keeping people. So I think while we're talking about a lot of these things, I think that your guys' systems can play a much bigger role and have a much bigger impact on an organization. Not just the things we talked about today. I guess I would challenge people to think outside the box.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is when we deploy one of our products, it's not followed by an army of trainers. In fact, we don't train people on how to use it. We just let them use it. And I've always had the bit between my teeth when it comes to training, because what do we measure? we measure bums on seats, we measure hours. Those are metrics that we could have measured 1,000 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
And when we look at the effectiveness of training, all the literature that I've looked at, the highest number has been 15% effectiveness. Right? So best case scenario, 20 people walk into a room, right? And they go through the training for the however long it is, 2 hours, 2 days, whatever it is. Best case scenario, 3 people walk out knowing what to do different. Right? Most plausible case scenario is 20 people walk out with just like a little bit of information. They're not really sure how to use it. They try something, they regress back to what they know. Price point and brand, going back to my olive oil story.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know what to do differently. But now we've just spent, 20 times 2 days, right? Plus the trainer, and all the downtime associated with that. So call that, 60 or 80 person days worth of work for what?
Yeah.
Because we're putting people back into the exact same environment in which they came from.
Yep.
And no amount of training is going to will them to make better decisions faster if we're not looking at the actual environment in which they're making decisions.
I like
Yeah,
it.
good point.
So, Dean, as we wrap this up, man, do you have any other questions or anything else?
No, man, we need to have Michael on again and really dive into more capabilities of the systems and maybe get whether it's an OEM or a safety guy in to really maybe dissect one aspect of the industry.
Sure.
To where we can explain it maybe on a more granular level if you're up for it, Mike.
Yeah, would you be interested in doing like a demo?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that would be great. And I think bringing on one of our partners would be a great way to not hear it from me.
That's a great idea. Maybe we take somebody from a mine here in Nevada to where it's
yeah, and you guys, and
just not Nate Trujillo.
Just so the audience knows, you guys are actively in mining companies. You're in oil and gas. It's not like you're a startup. You're not new to all of this. All you're doing is presenting what you've done for a while to the mining industries on a more broad scale, I guess, hyper focused in mining now.
Mining and energy. So if you're mining, utilities, construction, oil and gas, you can go nuclear as well.
That would be a great
applications. Yeah, the applications for highly regulated, safety critical, complex industries. That's the arena that we operate in, and software alone can't help make people make better decisions faster. Right? You need a technology that can come in and do that, both from a visualization standpoint, but also from an AI standpoint as well.
So you said nuclear, and I went, man, how that could revolutionize what we do from a power perspective. That would be a great, interesting conversation.
Sure. Well, I don't think we're done with the conversation. I think that if Michael or his team would love to do this again, we'd absolutely love to learn more about it. But I will ask, where do people get a hold of you guys? How did they get a hold of you, and what does that look like?
Yeah, they can go to interknowlogy.com. So interknowlogy.com. If you ask Google who built the C and Election Wall, our name typically pops up there. Or they could reach out to me directly, Michael H at interknowlogy.com. And we'd love to start the conversation and frankly keep the conversation going that I know has already started in a lot of organizations. But again, getting over that first hurdle. People's AI journeys I love my walking holidays, the most difficult step of a walking holiday is the first one, because you've done all the planning. You spent all the money, you've got all the gear, etc. But every subsequent step just gets that much easier on a walking holiday. So we understand that the first step is daunting. And that's why we help organizations with an initial project that we can, get that up and running in 6 weeks. We went offshore across 9 or 10 different rigs in 3 or 4 different jurisdictions to launch Caddi 1.0 in 6 weeks. So we're pretty confident that we'll be able to kind of hit those milestones as well. But that the first step is always the toughest. But we're here to help take that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. We appreciate your time. And for the audience listening, we'll link all this stuff into the episode notes, so you can absolutely go and check them out there. Michael, I can't thank you enough. This has been super cool. And again, I look forward to our future conversations.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Likewise, guys, it was great. And thanks for having us on. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, guys, check us out, miningmindsllc.com, Facebook, Instagram, X. Adios.
Peace.
Thanks for listening into the podcast, everyone. This was another good episode. And I'm going to be honest, the more and more I start to dive into AI, I know there's some fears out there. I know that people are talking about job losses. But I think this episode to me was truly well, Michael said it best on the podcast. This is a technology company, and it's out there to support that human element. If you're new into your role and you're trying to learn, if you're a new planner, you're a new safety professional, you're a new operator, this technology has the potential to support you in your profession. And the cool thing about it was, and really something important that I took away, is they start with the decisions. They provide that decision-making environment and how those decisions affect that organization. So that was my first key takeaway from this, and really, like I said, separating it from other maybe AI companies out there or other technology companies out there. These guys are backed. I mean, if like you heard Michael say, I mean, you watch CNN and any political race that you've watched in that board that they bring up, that's their technology. That's their command center. Coupled with Caddi, which I think the analogies he used were phenomenal and really helped kind of simplify it for somebody like myself. But I thought it was really important that not only does this technology help with decisions, which I just discussed, but it gives you those insights you didn't know you needed versus those that you want. And if we sit down and think about that, you're taking out prejudices, you're taking out opinions, you're taking out a lot of the nonsense that maybe is not necessary and actually getting what is required. For me, that made Michael and his company stand out. And I know we talked about a lot of different things on here. We do want to have these guys back on, maybe to dive into some stuff a little bit more. But something I've talked about on previous podcasts, and I'm going to hit on again right now, measuring failures from successful work. It's a lot to think about, again, a lot to take in. But if we know what we do good, how do we take the failures from what we're doing good, measure that, and become better? And in my opinion, if this is where AI is going, that's huge. That's a huge opportunity for any company, for any organization, or for any individual to understand. So just my takeaways. I do appreciate when you guys brass in, tell us what you guys think. But what a heck of an episode. I want to say thank you again to Michael and his team. Would like to sit down maybe with them in the future and actually do a demo, be able to put it on video and show you guys. So with that being said, our 200th episode's coming up. I hope you guys stay tuned. We got some cool announcements coming up for that. Our website's up and running. We got merch out there. If you're in the Powder River Basin, you're an Iron Ranger, you're a Nevada miner, we're going to start coming out with some new stuff. But we have the Mining Mind stuff out there as always. A little public service announcement. It's getting a little bit cold out there. Winter's starting to come around for all you cold weather miners. Keep your head on a swivel. And with that being said, whether you're out there pounding roads, driving drifts, or pushing throughput, stay safe.
I'm never taking days off. No one used to know me, now I'm on your radar. Pedal to the metal, I know it's gonna pay off. I suggest you get on board before I take off. I be going up, getting so high. Looking at the cream of the crop, watch the way I rise. Cash rule everything around me, it's a way of life. Smile up on my face when you see me, I'm feeling fine. Life is but a dream, baby, now it really seems crazy. Who would've thought we could make it happen? Not a dream payment, stay up on my grind, I keep it going, do my thing daily. Rocking merchandise that all these companies gave me. Feeling blessed, so blessed, gotta thank the Lord above. Gotta thank all of the angels who just blanket me with love. Gotta thank all the familia sticking with me through the mud. When I was really low, all your support, it picked me up. It's a cold world, but we gotta smile through all the pain. Through the droughts and the rain, rolling on the all-terrains. Make it through them dark nights, you get to the brighter days. I've been driving all my life, just look at all the ground I've gained.
Engine been idling, push on the gas, holding the hourglass in my hands. You can do anything you wanna do. Tell me why wouldn't you? I got visions, really ain't far-sighted. I know most of them can't feel my shine. In my mind, I've been in it for life, and when they see me, they just might go blind.
Yo, I push forward like a bulldozer. You can't sway me from my path, I ain't no pushover. Don't believe that I'm a winner, better look closer. Doors that used to be closed, now I pull open. Baby, I'm a winner. From spring, summer, fall to the winter. Working under pressure, Kobe clutch, I'm a killer. Watch me knock it out just like the Thriller in Manila. I double L the ill one, nobody iller. Independent, living life, and I live and learn. Ain't no quitter, I'ma fight it, and I get to work. I've been blazing my own trail that never been traversed. I've been learning from my failures, now I'm better versed. I just drive like I never did before. Keep that drive alive and put that pedal to the floor. I just drive till the wheels fall off, and keep that drive alive. Make sure the engine don't stall.
Engine been idling, push on the gas, holding the hourglass in my hands. You can do anything you wanna do. Tell me why wouldn't you? I got visions, really ain't far-sighted. I know most of them can't feel my shine. In my mind, I've been in it for life, and when they see me, they just might go blind.
Ain't a damn thing falling on your lap. No, you gotta strategize, execute, and attack. Keep it moving every day, push forward, never backwards. If you let that fear when you're headed for disaster. If it ain't about a dream, then it ain't about me. All my dreamers keep pushing through the pain, keep striving. On the road, keep that pedal to the metal, driving. They say it's about the journey, not where you're arriving. All gas, no brakes. Attack your fears and go grab your fate. Nothing ever came easy for those we consider great. No matter where you're at in life, just know it's not too late. Never need a chauffeur. Grab the wheel and take control of your life and keep feeding that fuel into the motor. Formulate a plan, navigate, keep moving forward. It's a never-ending journey. Keep driving and moving onward.
Engine been idling, push on the gas, holding the hourglass in my hands. You can do anything you wanna do. Tell me why wouldn't you? I got visions, really ain't far-sighted. I know most of them can't feel my shine. In my mind, I've been in it for life, and when they see me, they just might go blind. Engine been idling, push on the gas, holding the hourglass in my hands. You can do anything you wanna do. Tell me why wouldn't you? I got visions, really ain't far-sighted. I know most of them can't feel my shine. In my mind, I've been in it for life, and when they see me, they just might go blind.